for a moment if I uttered such a despicable phrase as the word person does not include Jews? Or what if I said people of color? Would you be shocked? You should be, but just replace that last word with the unborn and you have a quote from a Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Harry Blackmun. As G.J. Rhoda notes in his abstract for unborn children as constitutional persons and issues of law and medicine. Chilling as it is, much of our country wouldn't even bat an eye at such a phrase. For many years, I've volunteered with a local crisis pregnancy center and heard firsthand how abortions affect people in Mississippi. I've also completed some research on the practice of abortion in America. I have found that abortion is immoral because it supports hateful ideology, ends a human life, and yes, it hurts women. The very practice of abortion is in large part entangled in racist, sexist, and ableist beliefs. Margaret Sanger, as Jennifer Latson describes her in her Time article, What Margaret Sanger Really Said About Eugenics and Race, was a vocal eugenics enthusiast. In 1921, Sanger made contemptible statements about disabled people, writing that the most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the overfertility of the mentally and physically defective. Though Latson defends Sanger by saying eugenics was a popular idea at the time, many pro-abortionists today do not oppose these selective abortions. In fact, the Guttmacher Institute, itself a supporter of so-called reproductive rights, admits in an article on their website entitled Abortion Bans in Case of Sex or Race Selection or Genetic Anomaly that only one state in the entire U.S., North Dakota, bans abortion in the case of fetal abnormality. A mere 8 states ban sex-selective abortions and only 1 bans race-selective abortions. A Twitter account associated with Planned Parenthood even went so far as to tweet, "If you're a black woman in America, it's statistically safer to have an abortion than to carry a pregnancy to term or give birth." Even without agreeing on the ethics of abortion, we can all agree that encouraging abortions in minority communities would be detrimental to their population in this country. Still, many in the pro-choice community have tried to distance themselves from this practice. As Kate Greasley in her Oxford Journal of Legal Studies article, Is Sex-Selective Abortion Against the Law?, writes that the former head of the United Kingdom's Department of Health and Social Care condemned carrying out an abortion on the grounds of gender alone as morally repugnant. But why would such a practice be morally repugnant? Why is it wrong to target a fetus for abortion on the grounds of its race, sex, or disability? Any reservation that pro-choicers express at such an idea points to an inescapable reality, that the fetus is a distinct human being. The very fact that it can have race or sex implies its humanity. A clump of cells is inherently incapable of such a characteristic, which is perhaps why many in the pro-choice community have shied away from addressing this issue publicly. Scientific advancements have only confirmed that even early on in development, the embryo has features unique to itself. According to the Mayo Clinic in Fetal Development in the First Trimester on their website, at fertilization, the chromosomes from the parents that determine key characteristics such as the baby's sex are already in place. These characteristics may differ greatly from the mother. Just 3 weeks later, the baby's heart and vital organs are already taking shape. By week 12, the fetus has fingernails, intestines, toes, eyelids, and much more. Some may argue that the question of when life begins is philosophical rather than scientific. However, with uniquely identifiable body parts, DNA, and characteristics, the argument that the fetus is just a clump of cells or a part of the mother's body is not only misguided, but scientifically false. Still, perhaps one of the biggest arguments that the pro-choice community makes is that if abortion were legalized, it would severely harm women. However, evidence shows that abortion may put women at a higher risk for injury. In a book entitled Abortion Counseling, A Clinician's Guide to Psychology, Legislation, Politics, and Competency, Rachel Needle and Lenore Walker make the audacious claim that few women have a negative reaction to abortion today, and even fewer develop psychological symptoms that last longer than a few days or weeks. However, a study conducted by the American College of Pediatricians in Issues of Law and Medicine contradicts this claim. In induced abortion, risks that may impact adolescents, young adults and their children, The ACP reports on studies conducted in California and Finland that found that women who had undergone an abortion were 2.5 to 7 times likelier to take their own lives. Though no study has been able to establish that the procedure caused them to commit suicide, the ACP notes that a strong connection exists. Other studies have found that women who undergo an abortion are at a higher risk of premature death and have an elevated chance of breast cancer due to the interruption of maternal development. Thus, it is unmistakable that, because abortion is entangled in prejudice, ignores human life, and harms women, it must be wholeheartedly rejected as immoral by any rational society. Dr. Seuss gifted the world with a beautiful bit of wisdom when he said, "A person's a person no matter how small." America is a country founded on the essential belief that every individual is valuable and worthy of protection, especially the weakest among us. As Americans, let's uphold our constitutional duty, fight for the lives of the unborn, and support mothers in their darkest times.